Okay, thanks for checking out this video. I'm gonna just jump into it. So about a year and a half ago, I put out a video called Relationship Anxiety. Actually, no, sorry, not a video. It was a podcast. But I put it up on this channel now. So if people want to check it out, they can. But also not necessary, I think, to get the gist of this. I've had people reach out to me with very kind and thoughtful comments, and also asking me how things are going. So um, I thought I would try to respond to that a little bit here. So yeah, I think it's necessary to jump back to the point when I decided that I was struggling with relationship anxiety. And I had come to that conclusion when my marriage was ending. I just wanted to understand what was going on so that I could find a way, I guess, to fix things, as probably anybody would in that situation when you have children and when you've been together for quite a long time. And it seemed like being able to identify what was wrong with me would make it so that I was, I guess, in, because if it was something wrong with me and then I was in control of things, then I could fix things, is what I was thinking at the time. But yeah, despite what I attempted to do, um, going to speaking with like a therapist or counselor, ultimately that, those thoughts and feelings of it not working or it just not being right remained, and the relationship did end. But then at this point, I'd come up with this way of looking at things where I just had relationship anxiety. That's what it was. I had it, I had it then. What I started to do was look through the times in my life when I was younger, growing up, and be able to pick out all these times that I clearly had relationship anxiety. And then this last time, like I talked about in the podcast episode, I just wanted so badly, I guess, for things just to be able to work out and for me just to feel happy about things. And I didn't. And so then I thought, once again, it's just this relationship anxiety that I can't seem to overcome or get rid of. But I don't I wouldn't say I consider myself to have relationship anxiety anymore, despite it being sort of a theoretical opinion about myself that I've come to. But I want to kind of explain why I've come to that conclusion. I realized that in the last X number of months, since I have been on my own again, that the same way, like I started looking back at the way that I had labeled myself and picked out all these situations to say, oh, here's proof that this is what what I am or what I have or what I struggle with. Because I realized I would talk to other people, friends or family or just people whose lives I knew quite well and whose relationships I knew quite well. And just like me, they had their own situations that if I looked at them, I could pick out and go, oh, that's relationship anxiety. But they didn't see themselves as that way. And so they didn't dwell on that. And they were able to go on and have, get married and be successfully and happily married. Right. So just as much as I could look back and say, I didn't feel particularly comfortable being in a relationship. If someone were to ask me out, let's say when I was young, like in high school, um, that just as much as that could be seen as a proof of relationship anxiety, it could also be a sign that maybe when it comes to relationships, especially at that age, I was a bit of a late bloomer and also didn't actually really like um, anyone so much as a friend to start with have been interested in me. And that's really important. Right? So just yeah, when I looked back, I could look at situations and go, "Oh, I was feeling anxious then. What was going on at that time?" Well, things were moving too fast. They were moving at a pace that I wasn't comfortable with, and I didn't have the vocabulary, or I guess just awareness, self awareness enough to recognize that because I was young. But yet, the feeling like I was, I guess, betraying my own boundaries is what in those cases was causing that feeling of anxiety that I was feeling, and that I later in life had at one point looked back on and said, "Oh, that's proof of relationship anxiety." When really, if I look back at it now, I can say, "Well, of course I was feeling anxious." Or there were cases where there were realistically red flags of incompatibility, or things about the person that I pushed away, the fact that I didn't like those things because maybe I was just too infatuated with the person. And especially if you have been single for a while, it's hard to it's hard to always be clear on what's best to do, because it would get really confusing. So here's an example. Let's say I had a crush on someone or was interested in someone, and maybe I put them on a bit of a pedestal, but also I hadn't really considered it turning into a relationship. So, and that's a way that I can be a bit, is where I can be a little bit prone more to, I guess, the fantasy of a relationship rather than the reality of it, which I'm aware is something that I need to work on, but I'm aware of it. But in that case, the the person sort of unexpectedly to me sort of returned my interest. And as soon as they did, I felt myself kind of, pulling away and feeling anxious. And then once again, I thought, well, this is proof that I have relationship anxiety, because, I like the person and then they like me back and then I'm not interested anymore. However, what was also going on was that on some level I knew that they weren't a good fit for me. And so it's a bit of both, right? It's yes, would I have been will will I ever experience, I don't know, but will I ever experience a relationship where I don't feel any anxiety about it? Probably not, right? I do tend to have sort of a bit of a general anxiety situation that I experience. So yeah, I'll probably never be 100% free of feeling some level of anxiety. But and this is what is so tricky, um, is that it makes it, I think having anxiety in general makes it so hard, or makes it difficult to trust oneself. But just so stuff like that, like I could look back and go, oh, I see now where maybe there were certain values that I placed importance on, and that person didn't match them. But yet I felt so, attracted or infatuated, or, any number of things of where I was at emotionally and mentally at the time that probably had nothing to do with that person, that caused me to get involved and become attached, and sort of bury those things, only to have them arise uh, in what I experienced as feeling anxious about the relationship. And once again, yes, I'm aware that I will experience that to some degree, no matter what. But I see a difference between it being unbearable and it being the kind of everyday lower level anxiety that sometimes peaks than what I was experiencing. So I have a new plan, and it's just, it's a theory that I want to try and see if it works. But I really do feel happier now than I have in a really long time, like probably years, and feel like I have greater insight into myself than I have in a long time. And that doesn't mean everything is perfect. There's still things like I struggle with, intrusive thoughts about different things, and I worry about stuff. And that's still there to be worked on. But I have a kind of self-trust, I guess, that I didn't used to have, where I feel like I can trust my decisions more than I could before. And even if I screw up, that I can trust that I can bounce back from that. So I wanted to talk about a few of the things that have helped me get to this place that feels better. One of them I'm going to look for here is an article that I came across, and it's written by a woman named Darlene Lancer. And she's a therapist, and she mostly, I believe, most of her work focuses on codependency. So this article is called Love, Lust, or Addiction. Because I think if somebody's a sort of a more emotionally sensitive and creative type of person like I am, that these things are more likely to become a bit more like muddled. And I, I'm going to link below to the article itself. But the things that stood out to me is when she was talking about, she makes a list of the differences between codependent relationship development and healthy relationship development. So for the codependent relationship development, the first one is intense attraction, but then feeling anxious. And I think this is interesting because sometimes that feeling of anxiety can feel like excitement a bit too, and that can feel a bit confusing. And if you think you have relationship anxiety, or you blame yourself a lot, you will wonder how much of this is anxiety, and how much of it is just excitement, and I'm ruining it. Then idealize each other, ignore differences. And this is tough because obviously when you're first interested in someone, you do naturally look for the positives about them, which I guess is why it's important to take time getting to know people. And then I just want to focus on the two top healthy relationships, uh, things to look for, which are attraction and friendship again, and you feel comfortable. And like I said earlier, unless I edited it out, there have been times when I look back and remember having met a man, I guess maybe, I don't know if a boy back then, I was when I was a teenager, but or older, but met somebody, rambling, but met someone and got along with the person really well, and had temperamentally felt like commonality, and 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 without even thinking about it, there were traits like, in looking back, I could say, oh, that person was very thoughtful. Like when we met, he was trying to turn his life around and was very conscious of his choices, and this made it easy for us to talk to one another because I was going through a similar thing. And then for whatever reason, maybe the person like had to move unexpectedly or something happened and we lost touch. But just that, just knowing that these experiences have existed within me, of being so feeling so comfortable and at ease around somebody, that, and looking back going, oh, that person, I could look back now and say that person was really actually quite attractive, but I didn't notice it so much then because it wasn't the thing that stood out to me the most. I mean, obviously, if you're not attracted to somebody at all, you probably won't be wanting to get to know them better as much, and interested. And then attraction, the second point is attraction grows as they get to know each other. So anyhow, I like that article. I'd recommend people check it out if you're having any if you're struggling at all, read that article. Helps to um, it helps to compartmentalize things in a way that I know for me I'm not always great at doing in my brain. And then I think it would be helpful to have a list, because it's easy when you're not in this sort of infatuated or attracted state to someone to be clear with yourself on what you're looking for. But if you don't think about it a lot, or you don't write it out and it's not deeply sort of ingrained, you might you might miss or ignore some of the red flags more easily than you would have otherwise. And it matters more for some people than others, but this idea of just dating people in like a very PG way, I would say, to get to know, is PG even? Should I say G? But just like getting to know somebody in a very innocent way, but just to focus on, yeah, like what do I like about someone? What traits do I like? Where do I feel comfortable? Where do I feel at ease? Years ago, I really wanted a bike. I'd wanted a bike for years. So for 2 or 3 years, probably, I had this idea in my head that I'm going to get a bike. But I didn't put a lot of effort into researching what kind of bike. But then I saw these um, kind of city cruiser bikes that I thought were kind of cool. They're the ones that have the wide handlebars. And so I got it in my head that I wanted one of those bikes. And then I got an opportunity to try one. And when I tested out the bike, it was awful. Like, I'm not a very tall person, and the handlebars were way too like far apart. And yeah, that style, like you couldn't like I couldn't turn it very easily. It kind of like when I did turn it, it made me feel like unstable, and it kind of hit my leg. The point is that getting to know what you feel comfortable with and what makes you happy in relation to another person can take also some being honest with yourself. And yeah, I guess maybe having some different experiences to figure out what those things are if you don't already know. Then, okay, you hear a lot about this idea of not looking for sort of, you're not going to find someone who's maybe 100% or like a 10 out of 10 for you, which I think is probably true because everybody's imperfect. And but I like the idea of going with your 8 out of 10 and then making it your responsibility, I guess, or your like opportunity to make up the other 2% by being a good partner. So that's that's on my list of things to want to try to do. Yeah, it's important to me because I still have that like younger girl's voice inside of me who still thinks I don't want to hurt somebody and I don't want to be hurt myself. Because anybody who I've been in a serious relationship with, I never stop um, caring about, on some level, and I never completely forget about. So I do have to be careful. I do have to guard my heart a little more and be more thoughtful because those things about me are true. I like having a plan. And it's still theoretical. I'm not in a relationship right now, and I don't know if when it comes down to it, these things are going to help. But I feel like they're already helping me in some ways because, as part of this, like I said earlier, I am aware that I do experience anxiety maybe more than the average person. And so, working with those negative thoughts or worrying thoughts on a day-to-day basis is already something that I'm working on challenging and coming up with new habits of thinking that I can do now, even not in a relationship. And I feel happy about that. Also, something that I think is funny, um, because of course, everybody from time to time, if you walk down the street, you might see someone who you think, oh, that person's good looking. and maybe they don't notice you, and that can like hurt the ego a little bit. And it's, even if you're not looking for someone, you can just, yeah, you can be a bit like, oh, that's too bad. So something that I tell myself when that happens occasionally is, so I really like the movie Stardust, and there's this part in the movie where Michelle Pfeiffer's character, and she's a witch, and she puts this spell on another witch because they're both looking for this star, who was Claire Danes' character in the movie. And so the one witch, Michelle Pfeiffer, says to the other one, "You shall not see the star, touch it, smell, or hear it. You will not perceive her, even if she stands before you." So I get really into movies, and like they start to become like part of my life. That's a whole other thing. But anyways, so I like to, if I'm feeling that way, or if I notice that, that's what I tell myself. I tell myself that I am like the star in my imagination, and whether you think it's like God or whatever it is in the universe causing it, but that there's some kind of like guardian angel or something looking out for me, who makes it so that, just like in the movie with the star, that someone who's not meant for me is not allowed to see me or hear me or perceive me. And that, I think that's funny, but it makes me feel a little bit better. Also, I am self-aware enough to be like, I get that maybe, like, I get that there is the reality as well that maybe nothing, like, maybe I don't ever meet somebody who I feel like is the right fit for me. And maybe that's just something I would have to, like, that would be the reality. But at the same time, fighting against reality doesn't make a person feel better either. So I guess at this point, I'm just happy to, work on myself and my own things, and be open to the idea that something could work out in the future with someone else if it was good, that it would. Anyhow, that's just how I feel lately. If something works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And if I'm doing all that I can to be like ready for good things to enter my life, whatever those things might be, then that's okay. And that's the best that I can do. So anyhow, thanks for checking out this video. My name's Lisa, or Lisa Q, if you go by the channel name. And yeah, if you found this helpful at all, please like this video, and consider subscribing if you want to hear more of my content. And thank you.